afternoon and good evening for everybody who is online today. My name is Jessica Driscoll and I'm Head of Immersive Technology at Digital Catapult, and I'm thrilled to be the moderator of this panel today on the Immersive Arcade, the showcase. So a little bit of background about Digital Catapult. We're a centre for advanced digital technology innovation. We drive adoption of advanced technologies through testbeds, labs, accelerator programs, connecting UK SMEs to larger enterprise to help grow the UK economy. And I'd like to now introduce my fellow panelists, and then we're going to hear all about the Immersive Arcade and the wonderful creations that are in there. So can I start with Glen? Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Mute myself. Hi, yes, my name is Glen Neath and I'm one of the artistic directors of Darkfield.
And I'm David Rosenberg. I'm the other artistic director of Darkfield.
Brilliant. Darren?
Hi, my name is Darren Emerson. I am the CCO of East City Films and a director of VR experiences.
Brilliant. Charlotte?
Hi, I'm Charlotte Mikkelborg. I am the founder of Picture This Productions, and I'm both a film director and an immersive creator.
Thank you. And last but by no means least, Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna and I'm head of studio at Kaleidoscope.
Fantastic. So what is the Immersive Arcade? The Immersive Arcade is an idea that Digital Catapult has produced on behalf of UKRI to really celebrate the best of British immersive content over the last few years, with many parts of the industry, really relying on face-to-face, location-based experiences and footfall to remain and to continue business as usual. During the pandemic period, we haven't been able to do that. And we wanted to provide a space, a place to celebrate these creations and to reimagine them, and also to show them to a wider audience. As everybody who's working in the immersive and creative industry knows, some of these pieces have only been seen by a select group of people, be that at a festival or be that, at an activation in a gallery. And by doing the Immersive Arcade project, we really wanted to broaden that audience and invite university students to do physical activation later on, and also to promote it internationally to really celebrate the best of British. So we've done this in collaboration with the Museum of Other Realities. The Immersive Arcade is set there, and it's going to be a showcase running all throughout 2021, and it's going to have several volumes, and we're celebrating the launch of the first volume, and our creators are going to tell you in detail about their pieces. But Anna, I'd just like to ask you a few questions about the differences in kind of hosting this type of showcase. So Museum of Other Realities have done the Cannes and Tribeca festivals, again, responding and pivoting to the fact that you couldn't have those face-to-face interactions during the pandemic period. Can you tell us what's been different about this particular showcase? What's different about the Immersive Arcade compared to a festival?
Well, first and foremost, I would say what makes it different is that nobody has ever done such a thing before. It's the first ever national collection of immersive art. We have been extremely excited to be able to collaborate with you on this project, both at Kaleidoscope and at Museum of Other Realities, because with this amazing opportunity, there comes a lot of challenges. And I think the biggest challenge is actually that you have so many choices because you're the first man on the moon, and you can actually go very different ways. You can actually have so many different approaches to how you select the pieces you want to showcase, how you curate this art, and then how different it is from a physical experience, whether it's in a gallery or at a festival. Obviously, the comparison with festivals is something that comes to mind very quickly. However, here we are not obliged with the fact that we're premiering a new piece and that needs to be showcased together with pieces that have been produced on this specific year. We're working with pieces that have been created across a long time period. So we have a lot of we have a lot of creative freedom in how we put these pieces together. And when we've been doing that together with your team, I think we've been learning so much about what it tells us about how the industry has evolved across the last decade or even the last 20 years. how technology has changed, because obviously sometimes there are certain limitations. There are things that are difficult to translate to a entirely immersive platform. But then there are also benefits. You can reimagine the piece in a way that hasn't been possible before. You can try seeing it in a different light. And you can also try to kind of revive the passion behind the project when you're working with creators for which usually these pieces have been extremely important. And it's been a great adventure and a great pleasure for us to work with some of the best creators that are out there in the market that have paved the way to actually making VR an art discipline.
Thanks, Anna. I think that was a really, really useful context and framing. And I think it is very exciting to be the first to do this kind of national collection and retrospective. And hopefully we'll be able to share the learnings that we've gained during this project with the wider world, you know, and hopefully inspire them to do this kind of thing as well with their own creations, because there's been so many brilliant virtual reality and immersive experiences created worldwide. Okay, I'm not sure if we can get any of the polls. I'm going to ask our host to confirm that in the chat, because one of our questions to the audience to try to get a little bit of a sense of who we are, who we're speaking to, is how many people have actually done VR in the audience that we're looking at, because I think that everyone on the call here is very familiar, and sometimes we can be in a bit of a bubble and think that everybody's got access to that technology, but some people might not have. So I'm just going to check and see if any information comes back. But for those of you in the audience, you can raise your virtual hand, even though we can't see it, if you have done VR before. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about Darkfield. And I'd like to invite Glen or David. I'm not sure which one of you is going to give the kind of elevator pitch. And I'd also like to show the Darkfield images of the container. David, is it going to be you?
Sure.
Brilliant.
Go on. Yes, it is.
Tell us about the experience.
So, well, first of all, just a little background. Myself and Glen have been working together for over 10 years, and all the work that we've made is for audiences in total darkness using binaural audio and other sensory effects to immerse audiences in these imagined environments. So all of our work up until last year has been location-based work. So we have been, as Darkfield, we build these experiences into shipping containers and tour them around. So there's always an interior design of a shipping container. The audience come in, and very soon after, the lights go out. This production, The Invisible, was the last thing that we did before the coronavirus in February of last year, and it was an activation for the release of the film The Invisible Man. So it was with Universal and Blumhouse, and we created this experience that was in a container in City Walks in LA, and there was lots of plans for what would happen after that, but all of those plans were shelved. And over this last year, we've shifted our focus to making work for audiences at home, and now, most recently, a version of The Invisible for VR. So this is our first first experience with making our work for VR. So it's very interesting for us. It's still an audio experience. So the Museum the Museum of Other Realities have created this fantastic environment where you do walk inside the container, but the lights do go out pretty soon, and the experience is all audio. You need to wear headphones, and there's nothing to look at. So it's sort of counterintuitive for VR, but we hope it works.
Thanks very much for that, David. And how did you feel about recreating those assets in VR? Did you want to create a realism? Did you kind of think, okay, well, this isn't the real world, so we'll do something pretty different? Or did you want the audiences to feel like they were really entering the container and they really had some kind of essence of the experience in the physical world?
I mean, it was a combination of the two. I mean, we were very interested in trying to create a quite a well realized and rendered container from the outside, But one of the big components of a lot of our work is they're communal experiences. They're experiences that you generally do with other people, and those other people, you have the feeling that they're involved or becoming implicated in the action. So one of the things that we've done for this VR experience is you enter the container, and there are some other people there, but they're avatars, just like you are. They look like you are as an avatar. I mean, this is something that it would be nice to, as we continue to develop how we make work in VR. This is something that we would want to develop further. But so there's both the realism, but there's also the trying to create something that feels that it's of the environment, and that environment is the museum with the particular way that the other audience members look in the museum.
That's really interesting. It's funny because the Darkfield, I did 3 of your experiences, and that was my last cultural experience before the lockdown. So it was really great to be able to reimagine and re-experience it in the Immersive Arcade. So thank you. Glen, can I throw a question to you? You have made a really successful pivot with Darkfield Radio during the pandemic. Do you think that after this experience you're going to do more of that, or are you going to kind of get back to doing LB experiences? Where are your leanings after this, and what do you think is going to stick for Darkfield? You're muted.
We want to do both. I mean, we've found that this sort of working in Darkfield Radio has really opened up a whole new audience for us, in terms of the XR people who've been involved in film festivals, which has got us a different kind of audience. So we really want to. We've got a few shows already we're starting to make some new shows for the platform. So we're keen on continuing with that, but we're also very excited about getting back to our containers, and we have got a digital catapult commission, a eulogy which we made during lockdown. We built the container during the first lockdown, which hasn't been seen by anybody apart from a few people, which we tested it on. So we're quite keen to get that out. Yes, I mean, we want to continue to do both. I mean, it's been really exciting. It's been super successful, and it's been really interesting to sort of work in this new way. And it's thrown up lots of new challenges.
Can I just pick up on the audiences there? You said that you'd been able to attract some new audiences and reach new audiences. Is that an international audience? Is that a different demographic altogether? What have your insights shown?
Both of those, I think. Sorry, David.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, I mean, because our practice had always been with location-based performances, then there's that it's about being in a particular place. So we've managed to reach internationally in a way that we've been able to have audiences in countries where up to now we haven't had containers. But also another thing that's been really interesting about it is that we see this now as a vehicle for like a gateway in order to prepare new territories or new regions for then for our containers at a later stage. For an example is in South Korea, we made a translation of one of the Darkfield Radio at home experiences, and now they're just building an activation, a live activation of one of our previous shows there. And I think that it's quite a nice way for maybe for other producers or other collaborators to test their audiences and also test the relationship with us and see whether it's something with a fairly low risk, whether it's something that can work, and then hopefully that will then build for future collaborations and future presentations around the world.
That's really interesting, and I hadn't really thought about using VR as a kind of previs tool really for your physical installations, and also as a way to gain audience insights from different countries. I think that's fascinating. It'd be really interesting to kind of research that more and find out what came of that afterwards. That's going to be really interesting. The rest of the panel, how have you guys done any of the Darkfield installations, the physical ones?
Terrible.
I'm seeing someone smile.
I was coming in. So funny you should say that, because actually, no, I have like almost done 2 of them, and then something got in the way last minute. So I've just come out of the the Immersive Arcade version, and I'm still literally listening to this man telling me he can still see me, which was thoroughly petrifying. I think I'm actually quite glad I didn't, because it meant that I was in the surrounds of my own home, and ultimately I know I had the safety of being able to take off the mask and being somewhere I recognised, you know. So I'm almost quite glad I haven't, but it was, you know, it was great. I really enjoyed just doing it in the Immersive Arcade now. And I will definitely come to, you know, future ones, as I have attempted to come to past ones, but I'll actually make it next time.
I'll come with you, Charlotte, and hold your hand so you're not alone in the darkness.
And
Darren, you were going to come in there.
Well, no, I think I've only tried. You mentioned that you were making something with Digital Catapult, part of Creative XR, and I think I tried there was a showcase for that, and I tried it there, which, you know, unfortunately was in an office space, which you know is not quite as atmospheric as going to a container, but still I was actually completely blown away by the sort of kind of the quality of the audio and even with that I felt that there were people in the room, like literally felt that people were in the room, and I thought it was a mix of people being in the room and not in the room, and then to find out that there was no one in the room actually at all was quite astounding, really. So yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, that sense of presence is absolutely amazing. And it's funny because I read a review actually of the Darkfield piece in the Immersive Arcade, and the lady writing the review said it was actually better with the VR headset on, because even when she opened her eyes, it was still dark. So, you know, I thought that was quite amusing to read that. Some of the results of the poll have come back, and the question, I made an error. It was, how often do you do VR? And we've got some results here. So 18% of people have said never. So we've got 18% of our audience that have never tried it before, which is really interesting. A few times a year at festivals, etc., 43.8%. Once a month at work and at home, 12.5%. And every week at work and at home, 25%. So we've got some avid users here. Hopefully will come and visit us in the Immersive Arcade. And for those 18.8, hopefully you'll either go and purchase a headset or try to come to a location-based experience. Hopefully we can convert you. Okay, so thanks so much, Glen and David, for telling us a little bit in more detail about the experience and also about the physical aspect as well. We're going to move over to Charlotte's piece now, and we're going to talk a little bit about Fly. And I would love the trailer of Fly to be played now, so the audience can see a little bit more about the experience, and then we will hear from Charlotte a little bit more about the piece and ask some questions.
Young boy dreaming in the field, you know, you actually felt you were right there with them.
Jeepers, you know, you really feel like you're flying, you know, it's super.
I thought it was incredible. The platform, the wind, the temperature changes, all of that stuff just makes it so immersive. It was amazing.
It was really fun because when you were a bird, you could just fly really high and then you could just soar down.
Hi, so yeah, you just saw my experience Fly as it was playing in the Saatchi Gallery in 2019, actually. So I don't know where the last 2 years went, but yeah, in summer 2019. And what we wanted to do with Fly, the whole goal from the outset was to turn experiences into a time-traveling pilot, basically from the time of a young Leonardo da Vinci sort of playing in the fields of rural Tuscany and dreaming of becoming a bird, as he recorded in his childhood diaries he sort of dreamt of nightly, taking you through to become Wilbur Wright on the wing of the Wright Flyer, so that you feel like you're the person to sort of power and fly that first human-powered flight, and then eventually kind of plunging you into the unknown, into one potential future of flight 100 years from now, where we sort of envisaged a more sustainable future of flight as opposed to kind of 4 billion it pretty unsustainably pre-COVID. So yeah, that was the goal. And while narrative was important, I mean, it was really, for me, super important that this was a very experiential piece. So it does take you on a clear narrative journey. But, I think the beauty of VR is that it is so experiential. And, probably the only thing I have in common, well, I'm sure the only thing I have in common with Leonardo da Vinci is that I also had this recurrent childhood dream. And in fact, all my birthday wishes blowing out candles were of being able to sort of spread my wings and take flight. So not sure how I thought that was going to come true. But in any case, I really wanted to give you this experiential feeling that you could, do these things. And so we built this custom built motion platform that you saw there. That was sort of interactive. So it wasn't like a ride, it was something that was interactive with your decisions within the headset. So, you decided to soar right as the bird of a young Leonardo's dreams, and that's what would happen, and you feel yourself. We also hid within that kind of egg structure multisensory elements, so there was scent and wind and heat, which was really important because, for example, things like the Wright brothers scene, the reason they sort of traveled and deconstructed this took these plane parts 2,000 kilometers by train to this really remote strand of land that stretches out into the Atlantic Ocean was because of the level of the winds there. So you could feel that wind, and all of those elements were kind of very important in the initial sort of iteration of Fly, I would say. So that was the initial thing, a bit different to what we've got now in the Immersive Arcade, but also very excited about that.
Well, I've been flapping my wings in the Immersive Arcade. It's probably the most exercise I've had in a little while. Can you expand a little bit on that and tell us how doing a kind of LB experience first compares to doing something digital first, like in the Immersive Arcade, and what you think the differences are for the user?
Yeah, I think there was probably no way to avoid that it would be a slightly less rich experience for the user, in the sense that obviously you take away the ability to, to explore all of these multi-sensory elements. But in a way, it's great in that it kind of refocuses maybe on the narrative, so people don't get distracted. I don't feel that was how it was designed to distract, but I guess there probably were cases where that could have been the case, and so you get to kind of really refocus on kind of the story that we're telling you. But also it was great in that we could kind of reimagine the physical install, because the initial idea of the physical install, we kind of had this idea of you kind of strapping yourself into these huge kind of Icarus wings, and for various reasons that wasn't then how it worked out. We realized that we might be in danger of breaking people's backs if we really did what we'd originally thought had our original brainchild was clearly not a great idea. But what was wonderful was we could kind of bring it back to the bird in the Museum of Other Realities, where the Immersive Arcade is. So you kind of enter and you see this kind of beautiful bird in flight. And for me, it really started with that kind of dream of that sort of awe-inspiring idea of us being able to kind of spread our wings and take flight. And so it kind of feels like it's coming back to that kernel. And I think just that idea that as well we can take this beyond the physical installation, because what was disappointing in the Saatchi Gallery, which was obviously a wonderful experience, but was that it sold out in the first 3 or 4 days for the whole run, which was a sort of 5-week run. And so all these people who would have loved to have come and see it then couldn't come see it. So I'm glad that it anyway gets to continue to live virtually, even if not in quite the full form, but still in a way that people still seem to be enjoying. So yeah.
I think that's really a great point, having that opportunity to revisit it again in a different way, people who've seen it and people who haven't, because yes, it was really difficult to get a ticket. And, everyone was like, oh, did you get a ticket? Did you see it? And it became quite a thing. Oh, did you go and see Fly at the Saatchi Gallery? Yes, I did, a badge of honor. But now I can see it whenever I want for the duration of the exhibition, which is great. Charlotte, can you talk me through a little bit about what you think the future is going to hold for immersive experiences, LBs in particular? So, how does this reimagining manifest itself? Things like cost implications, because, it's infinitely more cost effective not to have to build a physical set and tour it, etc.
Definitely. I mean, I think there are all kinds of implications. I do have a dream right now of a new piece that I probably, I'm not going to go into detail about right now, but, it is quite another kind of quite large scale sort of, multi-sensory interactive 6DoF sort of VR piece. And, you know, there aren't the budgets around for those right now, in terms of, I think we have to go out and find, you know, smaller pots of money from many different sources to try and make that happen. At the same time, I've kind of last year during you know, well, we hope the worst of COVID, I was working on a Story Futures Fellowship Programme Award, where I put forward this idea for a multi-sensory AR game. So, so in that game, it's a narrative game, and you kind of follow a physical trail, although it can also be played remotely, but you follow this physical trail. I'm wondering if I've still got, oh yeah, I have a little badge. And this little badge that you pin on releases scent at certain key points in the narrative. So I was kind of taking multi-sensory mobile because, you know, that wasn't something I'd seen done before. And then I personally have this, you know, great love of smell. You know, I think people have different degrees of sensitivity of smell, don't they? Mine happens to be sort of really heightened. You know, I think my mum was all, you know, she couldn't have had an affair when I was a kid, because I'd walk into the house and be like, oh, so-and-so's been, or, you know. So scent's really important to me, and also, I mean, not just to me, but obviously, you know, there's scientific evidence behind that, how it has a more direct connection to the limbic part of our brains than the other senses. So, so you're quite literally creating more memorable experiences when you use scent. So, so yeah, so that's sort of some of the. So I think on the one side we can work on kind of slightly smaller scale things that are still immersive, but maybe don't cost quite, you know, the same as something like Fly would cost to make. And on the other end, you know, maybe just being a bit more creative in terms of where we get our financing, because quite frankly, all immersive creators have to be, you know, business people, creators, distributors at the moment, because we just don't have, you know, the framework set up the way that, you know, more established art forms do. So, yeah.
I think that's a really good point. You know, those roles are all rolled into one, and you don't necessarily have the time and space to be as creative as you might like, because, like you said, you know, you've got to concentrate on the distribution, and then you've got to, you know, work on those partnerships, especially as some conditions are becoming more difficult due to the UK now, you know, hence looking out to the rest of the world for more co-productions. Great, thank you so much for that, Charlotte. We're going to move on to Common Ground now, to Darren. So I'd really like the Common Ground trailer to be played, if that's okay, and then Darren's going to tell us more about the piece.
It was a really good place to bring up a family. That's why I chose to live in this area, and that's why I'd like to stay.
I don't think you'll ever find a stronger community.
My home means an awful lot to me. You know, I've brought a family up there. My late husband died there.
Whole community is going to be wiped out from here, and our voice never been heard.
London is becoming a city for wealthy people, especially inner city London.
We need to go to make way for empty flats for foreign investors.
Okay, so I hope people enjoyed that. That's just a short trailer of Common Ground, which is a VR piece that we made in 2019. We finished it in 2019, and it was commissioned as part of the Creative XR program and was funded by the Arts Council and also from Story Futures Academy as well. It tells the story of the Aylesbury estate. So the Aylesbury estate was once the biggest housing estate in Europe, and it was quite notorious in the UK during the 70s and 80s, in particular for crime and antisocial behaviour, and really it sort of kind of was kind of earmarked in the press as like the estate from hell, and so it gets a lot of press, and recently it's going through a regeneration program, which means that basically it's going to be torn down and it's going to be replaced with new flats. But these sort of regeneration schemes are quite controversial in that they often move people that are the community that have lived there for a very long time and move them out to other areas where they don't have any support networks or family and friends. And also people that have bought their flats have to be kind of bought out by the government, and they normally get bought out by much lower than the flat is worth in the particular area it's in, and it's in quite a central part of London. It's not far from Waterloo. So the piece uses 360 video, stereoscopic 360 video. It uses animation. It utilizes archive in lots of different ways. We used photogrammetry to create real 6DoF environments that you could and then interact with. So obviously spatial sound and stuff like that. So it's a lot of different techniques, a lot of different things that I'd been doing as a creator over the last sort of 5 years, I guess, since about 2014, 2015. And I kind of focused it all into this one piece of work, which was, obviously I was very passionate about, and, and since 2019, it's played at film festivals around the world. It's done really well, for me and for our company. It's won lots of awards, which is great, and so we're really proud of it. And this is the next stage, I guess.
Brilliant, Darren. Can you tell me, how does Common Ground doing it in something like the Immersive Arcade and kind of digital first compared to that experience of touring internationally at festivals or showing in a UK context? Is there a kind of cultural specificity to this piece that does this piece translate internationally?
Yeah, I mean, I get asked that a lot, to be honest with you, because it is very much a piece about a UK housing estate, and it looks at UK politics as part of its documentary narrative. It looks at how the UK in particular has looked at social housing, and how that sort of idea has changed through successive governments, and how commercial interests have changed the outlook on what social housing should and could be. But what I've found, we premiered at Tribeca Film Festival, and obviously, it's a US audience, and I was a little bit worried about that, but I didn't need to be, really, because I think most people can relate to that in terms of some sort of social housing in their community, or lower income housing, however you want to kind of call it or label it. But also because universally it's about community, and it's about homes, and we all have those, and we all live in communities that we care about. And so I think people can relate to that beyond anything else. And although it does, it's a piece that has social justice at its heart. It has a political viewpoint, although I'm not trying to stuff it down your throat. It really, the heart of it is about people, and it's about their stories. And I think people connect to those, and they come out of it, and they feel moved by those, and how eloquent the people are, and they're the opposite to how they often get portrayed, in the media. So I think there is a universality to it. Weirdly, it won an award in China, so it's maybe because it's kind of got a bit of a socialist outlook, I don't know, but it's traveled really well. So that's been really good. I mean, obviously it's different, showing it in Museum of Horror Reality to physically. I mean, it's a lot easier for me because I don't have to kind of stand around quite a lot and worrying about, if it's working or not and stuff. But yeah, I mean, we had a big plan with Common Ground to get it out to communities on the ground in the UK. That was one of our big passion points, because what I didn't want to do was, make it for film festivals. For that percentage who only see stuff at film festivals, which we did that poll about, that is great for them, but getting it out to people that don't attend film festivals is much harder. So we wrote a report actually that we published with the BFI in October last year during the London Film Festival, and that looked about how we could do that up and down the country in the UK regionally. And obviously COVID sort of kind of hit us right in the middle of writing that. So we had to kind of pivot what we were writing. And actually in the end, it became more of a look at just sort of general distribution, including online distribution. And one of the things that I didn't factor in as a creator back in 2018 and 2019, when we were commissioned by Creative XR, was I was so sort of caught up in the story, and I wanted to make it, and I was being really creative and stuff like that, that I got it ready for Tribeca. and the Creative XR showcase, but I hadn't really thought about what's next in terms of store release, Oculus, Vive, Steam, that kind of stuff. I hadn't really figured out that I needed to create a version that would work on lots of different PCs and different headsets. I was just focused on what was going to happen at Tribeca. And so therefore I've struggled actually to get it out onto those stores, because I need, there's budget that I need that I haven't got to get it out there. So, being part of this Immersive Arcade is actually a really great thing, because it's kind of doing that for me. We're showing the 360 version, not the 6DoF version. And that's because we made that for the London Film Festival, so that's available. But nevertheless, it's a really great opportunity to reach more audiences.
Thanks very much, Darren. I think it's probably worth mentioning as well that as part of the Immersive Arcade project, we want to take it physically to audiences as well, COVID allowing. So hopefully we're going to be able to take it to audiences that are currently underserved by the more traditional routes of watching immersive experiences. So fingers crossed, and we'll...
yeah, well, that'll be really exciting, and it's a really cool thing to do.
And hopefully you'll be there as well. You will have to stand around worrying then, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't mind.
You can worry with me, that's fine. Talking about audiences, we also had a poll to the audience. How can showcases like this reach a wider audience? And some of the ideas were location-based activations in cultural spaces, so 62.5%, through universities and educational organisations, 25%. And distribution partnerships with national organisations like the BFI, National Film Canada, etc., 12.5%. So it still seems that the audience thinks that location-based activations in cultural spaces is still a good way to go, despite the pandemic, and we'll be heading back to that hopefully. That segues nicely into archiving and legacy. So Darren, you've teed that up really nicely for us to kind of have a little bit of a discussion about that, because enabling audiences to see stuff, we've created, well, you guys have created, my work is not as illustrious as yours, VR classics, and the Notes on Blindness, which is the kind of central vestibule piece in the Immersive Arcade exhibition, is definitely a classic, and we will be featuring many more classics as the time goes on. And to have those classics, you need to be able to see them. We can all watch Citizen Kane, we can all watch Gone with the Wind, we can all watch, Back to the Future, whatever floats your boat, or you define as a classic. Who should be responsible for this kind of archiving? I know that Royal Holloway do things, but I don't have a great awareness of international archiving programs. And I think that the BBC wanted to do it too, but didn't. I think it's really hard, to your point, Darren, formats, licenses, co-productions, budget to do this. Does anyone in the on the panel want to kind of talk to that a little bit? Charlotte, would you like to kind of respond to that?
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a problem even with seeing them now, let alone seeing them in the future. The same sort of issues, some of the issues that Darren's had. I mean, we've had in that we created, Fly with this sort of showcase exhibition in mind, and which was a little short-sighted, because obviously we are, keen for it to be seen as far and wide as possible. And the size of what we created, etc. You can actually only watch it on a tethered headset, not only a headset. So you're taking an already modest sized audience and shrinking it again. And so I think we even have the problem now, let alone going forward. It would seem to me logical that it's an organisation that already has experience in. I think the closest to my knowledge, but there may be others on the panel with much more knowledge on this, would be someone like the BFI, unless Digital Catapult wants to take it on, but clearly they're going to need, funds from the government to do that. But, someone like BFI, who obviously has the experience of archiving film, I think they'd need, an additional, or perhaps there are members of staff with already those enough technical knowledge, or they'd need an additional, small team to work on that. And I think as creators, we also need, ideally, government funding, although it's not as if the government is not under strain right now with, other forms of funding they're having to do, but to archive our own piece and create them in enough formats that you're kind of trying to future-proof them to the greatest extent possible. But it is a challenge, definitely.
I totally agree. Anna, can I throw that question to you? Would it have been easier if everyone had a standard format to put this exhibition together?
Well, definitely, that would simplify a lot of things. But I think you've touched upon something that is it's like an octopus. Like there are so many issues we could discuss right now, because creating an archive is one thing. It means that you need to conserve these pieces. They're going to get old. Technology is going to change. We had that conversation about creating, archives of multiple movements that were happening on the web across decades, and I think now we're discussing that in the context of immersive pieces. But I think that there are two things. One thing is that we are in a very tricky situation, and I think by creating this collection, you are already filling a gap that is really very, very important. Is that we have a lot of XR content that has been created by artists that were funded using public funding. So it would seem logical that there would be platforms, or there would be channels where you can actually present these pieces and make them available, that would be run on a similar basis. So if you would have, for example, if you would compare that to a situation in more traditional disciplines like theater or dance or music, it seems obvious that when you fund a show or when you fund a piece, you also provide some sort of infrastructure that will hold it, and that will do something later on to keep track of this piece. Currently, we are obliged with using only commercial platforms. Usually they're corporate owned, and still we're playing with content that has been publicly funded. So there is a very important gap to be filled. We know that public agendas are trying to kind of get closer to facing that problem, especially in Europe. And we're expecting a lot of new, very exciting initiatives to appear on the European market in this area. And then I think we will be able to speak about how to actually create, this sort of digital legacy, how to protect this content, how to discuss its value over time, how to analyze what it meant, what types of stories were created, how the language has changed. All these questions, how it actually impacts our culture, the way we experience it, where we do it, how we do it. All these questions are to be answered, but I think that we're only beginning to understand that we started with created content, but we haven't created the infrastructure to hold it. These collections are very exciting. I think it's the first step towards something special. We have to also understand that what we have created together is only the first step in a long journey, because we're trying to build a format that is answering many questions at once. And when we're doing that, when we're working on it, we see that there are new questions arising. So yeah, I think it's coming, but I think that we have a lot of homework to do that we just didn't think of before.
I just wanted to add one point off the back of what Anna said there, which was that just thinking about this now, the thing that often shocks me or surprises me is that when you talk to kids especially who have tried VR, it's almost exclusively as a gaming platform. So it's like it's gone from computer games to VR, while they'll still be sitting and watching films. So why not, it's really important, I think, that we introduce more young people, like children, teenagers, to this medium also as a storytelling medium, because I think so far that introduction is missing. So I think it's brilliant when people like Darkfield, obviously their experiences are not so much for kids, but take their experiences around in containers, and and you can obviously access anywhere with a container, so that's the beauty of it. And so I think that certainly being able to do that kind of outreach, basically to take it to audiences that aren't otherwise seeing it, and introduce them to like the power of VR storytelling rather than VR gaming is really key.
I think that's a really, really good point. Thanks so much for that, Charlotte, and Anna as well, for really kind of clearly laying out the questions. There's more questions than answers. Definitely. Talking about questions, we've got some questions from our audience, and I'd like to pose this to Glen or to David in light of the eulogy piece. So someone says, what does the panel think of Darren Lanier's concerns around the amount of user data that is tracked in immersive interaction, and what else might be inferred from that data? So David or Glen, would you like to respond to that?
So let me understand. So I'm not sure how they are understanding the eulogy piece. In relation to interactivity for that piece, I mean, we're using an offline speech recognition system, which doesn't track anything, and in fact, I mean, I think that's something that I mean, with all of the both location-based activities and digital activities, we've always made a point of either creating our own platforms or using platforms that don't track any audience data. So, but I think it's interesting. I mean, I think the ongoing concerns with speech, especially which is something that now so many people allow into their homes, speech recognition also in their pockets, and this is an ongoing concern. But it isn't actually something that we're currently engaged with, because we do all these things offline.
I think that's really reassuring to know, and I think that's probably, you know, a very valid question, because all of your kind of kinetic footprint, so to speak, from when you move around in VR, all of that data could be incredibly valuable, or be abused in one way, or again, on the contrary, very, very useful, and enable us to do many wonderful things with it. So I think it's all, you know, again, to Anna's point, there isn't really an infrastructure around this yet. It's all still questions and worries, and I think a lot of it's quite still a little bit further in the horizon. I've got a question from Seb. So, do you think the days of the VR arcade are numbered, and location-based experiences need to be more creatively built into cultural activities? Darren, can I throw that one to you?
Well, I'm not sure. It depends. I mean, I think VR arcades are popular in different parts of the world. And you know, we see less of them, say, in the UK. There are a few, and obviously, you know, it's hard to tell what the legacy of COVID is going to be in terms of people wanting to put on headsets. But you know, obviously, there's technology that exists to make that safe, and you know, people are investing in that now. Technologies like Cleanbox and stuff like that. But for me, the location base is about having quality cultural experiences. It's about more than just the VR experience itself. It's about creating something that has a beginning, middle, and an end, in the sense of a user journey, and that is a physical journey that happens in and out and outside of VR. So, you know, for Common Ground, we looked at what we could do in terms of presenting other archive material of other forms that were discussing the same subject as we were, which was about social housing and its legacy. You know, how could we engage people that way? How could we create areas where people could continue the conversation? How could we create interesting sort of spaces around the VR to complement it? And I think that's, you know, I think people are already doing a lot of that. You know, Charlotte's done a great piece that was at the Saatchi Gallery, you know, and that had that kind of element to it, and people are kind of investing kind of more time and effort into that. We're working on something at the moment about acid house music, which will have a VR, you know, a big VR installation in it, but it's also, but our exhibition budget is for all the stuff that fits around it as well, that kind of links it. And you have to think very deeply about how you do that, and how to make that obviously not a tokenistic element, but something that actually has real value and has real connections to the subject matter that you're kind of looking at. So, you know, I'd say for me, that's where the future of LBE lies for the work that I'm doing, and I would like to see more of that. Obviously, there's a big expense for that, so I think that it has to be balanced with the ability to just get stuff out to people in the way that I described already, and that's so. You know, I've learned my lesson in terms of like those different versions that I didn't do last time. So for my next project, we're already budgeting the store version, a 360 version, because, you know, a lot of people haven't tried 360s. So just getting that out there really easily and putting on a VR cinema is maybe easier than doing all the wells and all the kind of all the installation stuff. But I would like to think that the main execution is that culturally rewarding.
So I think what I'm kind of hearing from all of our panelists is that there's room for all of these different types of experiences and configurations and various types of productions, dependent on people's budget and location. Just to finish off, so we've got a few minutes left, and several people in the audience have asked about pieces that you guys think are inspirational, or your favorite immersive pieces. So I'm glad that the question's not posed to me, otherwise I would be here all day talking about all of the immersive experiences that I love. Maybe I can throw this one to Anna first. So I know, I'm sorry to do this to you, and you're not allowed to pick anyone on the panel to pick favorites. You have to pick somebody else.
Well, this is a very difficult question. You know, I think that it's very hard to tell if you even have an experience that you love the most, because I think that all the pieces that I would say that I really love, I love them for very different reasons. And also when I have the privilege of working with creators and I have the privilege of reviewing the work over and over again, and then you also learn to discover things, you know, as you get deeper into the piece. We worked with Charlotte twice when we were exhibiting Fly at Tribeca first, and now at the Immersive Arcade. It was an entirely different experience. And it meant something different every time. I remember experiences that were very impactful. Cosmos Within Us, that's not even an experience, that's the whole ecosystem. That's something that we cannot show on a VR platform, because it's all about live performance, about a dozen of people working to make it possible. And the engagement of the director who's being there for you to kind of direct it live. You know, just, you know, one of many examples, but things that just stay with you for the rest of your life, that have changed something in the way you think. I think not only because of the power of immersion, but, you know, VR has something that only theater has. Like, you know, one of my friends said, like, if you succeed in theater, this success means so much more than if you succeed anywhere else, because it's happening live with a group of people. And you cannot compare that to anything else. I think we have that with immersive media, and feelings are extremely strong when you really kind of nail what the experience and what you wanted to achieve with what you have created. But I'm very curious to hear from the artists, because they're the source of inspiration for us.
Glen, how about you? Put you on the spot.
Well, usually at this point, I'd usually talk about shunts, which was when I first met David and my wife, and they were doing things that made me think, oh my God, I didn't even know this sort of thing was going on. It was amazing. But I also remember when I was
That's great. So one of your inspirations is me.
Yay! Well, when I was about 14, I do remember there was this slightly older boy who was into all sorts of great music, and I once went round to his house, and he put on a Psychic TV album in the dark, and he had all these speakers, 4 speakers around the room, and he played this album, and there were dogs barking and all sorts of strange things going on. And I remember being blown away by that. And quite a few years later, before I started to work with sound and with David, but that was the sort of moment where I felt something different.
I absolutely love that image of you in that room, you know, and just being like really kind of spun out, but really inspired by that, and what a journey to get to now. Thanks. Charlotte, how about you? What's inspired you?
Oh, I'm going to say really quickly, because there's too many, and we don't have enough time. So, well, I mean, anything made by Marshmallow Laserfeast to start with, because although I'm a narrative storyteller, so I really focus on storytelling, and I believe that Marshmallow would also describe themselves as narrative, but definitely in a different way, in a much more experiential way, in that there isn't that same clear, you know, linear narrative going on, but what you do get is this kind of beautiful experiential experience. So I think my first was Tree Hugger Wawona, which I just loved, and then, you know, Ocean of Air, that was also in the Saatchi, was great, and really, and you know, almost everything they've done through the eyes of animals. Sorry, my memory with names is horrible. I really enjoyed Notes on Blindness, which is also in the arcade. I mean, one of my first VR experiences in the doesn't it? and it's a beautiful piece. Spheres. I love Where Thoughts Go by Lucas Risotto, more for the fact that, you know, you can play a part in the experience. And also Gail Moore's Mechanical Souls I thought was so clever, because it was a branching narrative that was gaze driven. So you didn't even know you were making decisions, and then you came out of it and realized someone else had gone on a slightly different narrative journey. So I thought that was very clever. So too many. And just really quickly, because I don't want to hog all the time, but I did want to say in relation to Seb's question, yes, of course, the days of LBE are numbered, but there's still quite a lot of them. Like when my dad was growing up in 1940s Southern Ireland, you know, he was at the cinema every week, but he didn't have a television, and it only cost him like a penny or whatever it was, you know. So, of course, that was where he went. That was the entertainment, you know. And these days, you know, LBE is so great because most people don't have headsets. If they do have headsets, they don't have high-end headsets, so they're still limited in terms of the level of, you know, they get to. So of course they'll be big for longer, and I think that while some of the things like 360 video that Darren said and things will come more into the home market, it will still take quite a long time before the big multi-sensory stuff can come in. But even then it can, because I was hearing about, you know, haptics and such coming into the home, and like how you could be on a Skype with someone but feel them touch your arm to comfort you or whatever, you know. And so that stuff will happen, but I think the days are numbered, but not in the conventional sense of the word. It might take 50 years, but, you know, ultimately, yes, they'll go the same way as cinemas, you know, but I think it will be a while. Sorry, so that was my 5 pence worth.
Oh, that was brilliant. That was more of a £5 worth. Thank you. David, how about you? What's inspired you in immersive?
So, I mean, also like Glen, I mean, my with a lot of my references are more within live performance, and I think so there's an artist, Gregor Schneider, who made an Art Angel piece. This is probably about 15 years or so ago in East London, where there were these the two houses, or two terrace houses next to each other, which he had he had created the insides of those houses to be exactly the same, with a series of performers that were all in certain rooms. And the journey of an audience is that you would get a couple. You would go with one other person. You would have a couple of keys, and each of you would go into each of these houses individually. You would then come out and swap over and go into the other ones. And there's just something about. I mean, this is terrifying. That I think, and the horror of it all was all quite hidden. I think it was something about the sort of whole procedure of it, the fact you were alone. And then the fact that the same thing was going on in the next door house, there was so many elements to that experience that, and I think that quite a few of the projects that I've done since that, I think of that project a lot.
Thank you very much. That sounds amazing.
And Glen, of course.
And he's your inspiration. We've got about 1 minute left, so Darren, you're gonna have to just say it, because I have to do a plug for the Immersive Arcade at the end and play the little video thing. So quick.
Yeah, I hate this question, so I never come up with anything. All I will say is that most of the VIC, there's always like something in it that I like. I never see anything that I think all the way through I'm like, yeah, that's it. It's always like a moment here, a moment there that sticks with you. A little bit like Anna was saying, it's just like something will happen, you go, God, that was really cool. That really worked. I really like that. And because we're on that journey, it's like, you know, we're experimenting. So it'd be kind of weird if we had already made Citizen Kane before, you know, but we just got out of like silent cinema in terms of VR, or we're still in it. So, you know, go plug away.
Brilliant. So for those of you who haven't tried the Immersive Arcade, please come and visit us. If we could show the glitchy logo at the end. We also have a session for our US colleagues and counterparts, which is going to be on Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, I think. And then that is 1 a.m. UK time. So if any of you night owls want to come and hang out in VR with us, do. Thank you so much to our wonderful panelists. I'm absolutely thrilled to have been working on this project with you guys. Again, as Anna said, we're the first men / women / people on the moon. And it's been such a pleasure to produce this on behalf of UKRI. So thank you so much. And good morning, good night, good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you.
I don't think I'll ever forget my first day at Factory 42. News of a possible national lockdown because of COVID had just broken.
We had actually launched a new experience in the Metro Centre in Gateshead.
Had moved into full production and ready for a performance in June 2020.
We had created and established an amazing story with Aardman. All our technology was in place.
2020 seemed to hold so much promise, yet all across the creative sector, the impacts of the pandemic were felt. And this is a story of some of the projects that were supported by the audience of the Futures Challenge and the Creative Industries Clusters program, and how even the best laid plans were disrupted.